I'm joined today by Jason Centanni, the winemaker at a winery in the state of Texas called Llano Estacado. Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Or should I say howdy or hola?
Hi is fine.
Okay. So, Jason, thanks so much for taking a moment to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. I'd love to start with just some background on you, your personal journey to entering into the wine industry and bringing you up to your current role at Llano Estacado as winemaker there.
That's correct. And currently, in my just current state of life and mind, I am a father. I am a runner. I am a mentor to several people here, and I'm also a wine educator at the moment with some of our new staff. But yeah, it's funny how over time, especially when you start mentoring, I've been in this industry for 15 years. You become less hands-on as a winemaker. You have actually all your work going through other people's hands and trying to grow them and develop them in the process. So it's been quite a journey to get there. Absolutely.
Well, so let's talk a little about that journey. What got you interested in the business in the first place, if you can hark back all those 15 years ago?
I can remember the exact moment.
Oh, great. Let's hear it.
And yeah, and it's like it happens. I've heard this several times, so hopefully it's not too much of a stereotype or cliche in this industry. But what got me into it was a bottle of wine. It was a in that particular case, I didn't realize it was such a special glass of wine or a bottle of wine that we were having. I wasn't knowledgeable enough at that time, but I knew it was something special when I smelled it and tasted it. And I was in college at the time in Houston, at the University of Houston, and I was taking a wine appreciation class as an elective, because we're in college and we get to drink wine at school. This sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at the end of the semester, as a just kind of a treat for the class, towards like the last week we were in the class, during the lab session, the professor was taking small groups, because it was a big class, about 100 people in the class, small groups at a time, to go to this special kind of field trip across to the working hotel they had at the University of Houston, to this nondescript, it looked like an electrical room, but you open it up and it was this plush wine cellar. And an alumni had gifted their entire wine collection when they passed away to the university, and helped build this climate controlled, beautiful kind of boardroom wine cellar. And the professor had opened up a bottle of the 1982 Chateau Margaux, first growth Bordeaux.
Whoa.
It's what I picked up originally was that 1982 was my birth year, and I'm realizing I like wine. I enjoyed the class. I didn't realize, we tried some basic wines, as most classes can afford, that can afford the first growth the entire time, right? Just at the tail end. But I know that when I tried that wine, something special happened. I'm trying something as old as me. It was just as perfect as I can imagine wine being. And I realized that something just struck a chord in me. Something just was lit inside me. And I was like, I need to get into this industry. I need to find out how to make that. And it just changed my trajectory in my life. And I've made some progress getting there, but I haven't quite made an 82 Margaux yet. I'm still working on it.
Jason, you still have a lot of decades to get there. No worries. Okay, and so how did you end up? Let's fast forward. How did you end up at Llano Estacado?
Yeah, just some really, I'd like to say, lucky networking, and people being in the right place at the right time, advocating my desire to be in this industry. And I was able to come up and interview in 2005 for just a cellar position and a lab position prior to harvest in 2005, and came on board. It was 2.5 months after I graduated from college And so I went straight from that experience of tasting that 82 Margaux to, a harvest and starting, the first week of August in Texas, and just jumping right in, literally jumping right in, doing whatever I was told to do. And impressed enough people to stay on board. And I've been with the same company ever since, and worked my way up to winemaker in 2015. So I've been the winemaker for the last 5 years. And I've had some opportunities to work in California for a harvest. I've worked in New Zealand for a vintage, and I've tasted a lot of great wines, been inspired several times to do this and that. And I feel like, just taking on the challenge of working with new varieties, new growers, and continue to put Texas on a world-class level for some of these wines that we're producing. It's surprising. Yeah, everyone hears Texas wine. Really? What? You do that? I've heard barbecue, beer. You do wine?
Football.
Yeah, we do it. Football. Yeah, that's big.
Okay, well, that brings us to the subject of Texas and wines. As you and I were discussing earlier, there are certainly people, even in the industry probably, who are blissfully unaware of the fact that really fine wineries like Llano exist in the Lone Star State. So let's talk a little about the state of the industry in Texas, and then let's bring that to a conversation about Llano Estacado. So
sure.
How big is the industry in Texas, and what's its trajectory? It's kind of a loaded question in these days of COVID, I understand, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, so the industry is not very big by, I would say, American standards. And you got to think, the West Coast is really dominating most of the production, grape growing and wine production in the U.S. But Texas is it's I think the second largest population in the United States, second or third. I think it's second. A lot of wine drinkers here, a lot of beer drinkers too, but more wine drinkers nowadays, because a lot of people are actually moving to the state. Every year, it seems like there's more and more wine drinkers, but it's important because there is so many people in the state drinking wine. And so also people in Texas also like to purchase, and they like to support locally grown, locally made. Ford Motor Company found out a long time ago, if you put a Texas edition on a pickup truck, I think sales go up by double digits or something.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of people like to support the Texas, Texas. I don't know if it's an ideology or what it is, but they like to support anything with Texas. And the same has gone with the wine industry. For a while, it was, we didn't know what we were or what to do, but people were supporting us and being honest too. Hey, this is not very good, or hey, that's really remarkable. Do you have any more? No, I only made 50 cases and it's sold out, kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
So the trajectory it's a slow growth, but it is growth. We have big challenges here, especially when it comes to grape growing and the weather that dominates the states. It's very extreme. That's good and bad for us. It really creates some extraordinary fruit when we have a cooperating, Mother Nature and cooperating vintage. But then there's years where it doesn't cooperate, and it's there's not much to be had, and so we kind of step backwards a little bit. But that being said, it is growing. The viticultural side is growing. The winery side is growing. It's outpacing the viticultural side. So, getting your grapes can be a negotiation.
I can imagine a competitive negotiation.
A competitive situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's growing. It's on the upward trajectory, and new and exciting wines, new and exciting grapes that are showing some promise in the vineyards are and showing promise in the vineyard and the wineries as well. Marsanne, a lot of the right here that I'm drinking is one of these up and comings. that we like to, just put it in the glass in front of people and just kind of, they turn their heads. Wow, this is a really delicious wine. I've never heard of the grape. Tell me more about it.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where we're at. A lot of, I've never heard of that. Tell me more about it. That's kind of that probably sums up, where we're at in Texas.
Okay. Well, that's an exciting point to be at in the arc of the growth of an industry, right? When you're not right at the very start of things, you're at the point where you can feel momentum, it's going in the right direction, curiosity amongst customers and potential customers is growing. You've got a local consumer base that's interested in your product. Yeah, that's exciting. And so in the context of that general overview of the situation with the industry in Texas, where does Llano Estacado fit in?
Yeah. So Llano Estacado is the second oldest winery in the state. It's the second largest as well. And we kind of have two identities. We've got, we were a pioneer in the beginning, and in some instances, we still are a pioneer. But just the whole idea of commercially producing wine and having it available in almost every single grocery store in the entire state, that was the challenge that we were heading to face on through the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. And that was a company goal, and they accomplished it. We were like pretty much in every grocery store. And so now it's like, okay, during that time, the focus was, go work through the 3-tier system, get in every grocery store, show that Texas wine is, can be competitively priced, and, in a lot of cases come to you at a value, kind of over deliver the wine quality at that price point. So now it's time for us to catch up in the fine wine world, and also to show, the direction that, Texas is going. We're not going to be Cabernet, Chardonnay, Merlot. We're going to be Marsanne, Roussanne, Syrah, Tempranillo, Italian varietals, Aglianico, Montepulciano, Sangiovese even. Now it's time to show the world that, okay, this is the new direction. This is this is where Mother Nature is kind of leading us to go. We're the climate's changing. So now it's time to kind of be a new pioneer and a new leader to showcase, these up and comings to the state and to the world. Is kind of where I think the next 20 years is where we're going. You're right. We're even at 45 years old. This winery is still very, this industry is still very young, and we're still barely, figuring things out. But we've had some really great, customer feedback and some really great experiences. Turning people on to Texas wine throughout that whole journey, and we'll continue to push it for the next 50 years, God willing.
Right on. Well, okay, so that brings me to the following. If one of your pushes now is to raise the quality bar, to really start focusing some more on really, let's call them high-end, high-value, high-quality wines. Not that all of your wines aren't that, but just continually taking it up a notch. I want to talk with you about your experience with AromaLoc. I mean, as you know, obviously, you're a winemaker. For as long as people have been making wine, one of the universal vexing challenges facing the winemaker is a loss of aroma during fermentation and even after, right? And over the centuries, there have been all sorts of attempts to do something about that. I was just reading in a tome published in London in 1824 about an experiment that focused on 3 barrels. One was just an open barrel with some wine in it. Another had a simple lid with a little hole punched in the top. And the third had some kind of condenser attached. And the only one in this experiment of the 3 that led to an appreciably improved aroma experience and tasting experience was the barrel with the lid and the hole in the middle, interestingly enough. And so as soon as I read that, I thought to myself, okay, so 200 years later, along comes AromaLoc, and I think we've actually improved a little on the lid with a hole in the middle, tacked onto the
A
top
little
of it. Yeah, just a little bit, right? Right. So let me ask a general question first before we get into specifics of your experience with AromaLoc. Um, I mean, how important as a winemaker is aroma to you? Is it a big deal, or is it just sort of an afterthought? And how have, if it is important, how have you been approaching that issue historically?
Yeah, good question. I look at it two different ways, and mainly how it pertains to aroma, how it pertains to white wines and rosés, and then our red wines. Because I think with red wines, you've got the ability to absorb a lot of that aromatic potential within the structure of the wine itself. But with our whites and rosés, there's, it's, once it's volatilized, whether that's, early on in fermentation or during aging, it's gone. It's, that potential is just like, it's there's less and less of it as the wine it stays in the cellars. And so looking at AromaLoc, and I actually had I think I read the article in the Wine Business Monthly. It really, it's a simple idea. It's a simple device, which I love simple things. I think, trying to take complexity out of things as much as possible, except for wines. I do love complexity in wine.
Obviously, of course.
But during the operation, if we can take the complexity out and focus on the simple, I really like that. And it really was just like, wow, that is first of all, the idea, when you smell the fermentation aromas, when you smell how great the winery smells during harvest and fermentation time, it's like, that's cool. It's a cool experience, but you're right. It's all being gone. It's lost. You can't put that back in. And I actually understood that a long time ago. And just this idea of, hey, we're going to not allow that to happen with a very simple device and a simple way to operate it. Hey, I'm on board with that. I'm willing to try that. Yeah, let's do that. So, and then the fact that it is, it's simple to operate. After you get over the fear of, you're going to blow it up because your CO2 pressure is too high,
Yeah.
but it's not. The machine works,
no problem.
As designed. Yeah. After you kind of get over that, you're like, wow, this is, there is a difference, and you run an experimental versus control, and you're like, this is more aromatic than the control. So I like the beauty is in the simplicity, and I just can't speak enough about that. And it is so important to have those, especially in a hot climate that we're in, to be able to trap and lock in any aromatic potential you can get is utmost importance for our more simple aromatic white wines that we make. When you don't have that structure to be able to kind of absorb some of that aroma. So yeah,
right.
It's pretty important where we're at, I would say.
Okay, thanks for that. That all makes perfect sense. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but some of the analyses that we've done from trials that have been done by a couple of prestigious wine research institutions. One of them, the State Institute of Enology and Viticulture in I think it's Weissbach, Germany, which is Germany's oldest wine research institution. I think it was founded in 1868. And another from the Cool Climate Enology and Viticulture Institute at Brock University in Canada. Both showed that not only do desirable aromas stay in the wine during fermentation, but for example, one set of analyses that we just got back showed that in I believe it was a Pinot Gris, 2019 Pinot Gris, 14 months after bottling, the same analyses were showing up when we tested the ingredients of that bottle, which shows that the technology doesn't just help during fermentation, because of course, as you pointed out in your comment, you start losing aromas in every step after fermentation too.
Mhm.
And when you're using AromaLoc, that's not the case, which is pretty cool. We also, I will say, I'm harking back on what you said about reds. We had a really excellent winery in Napa Valley, Alpha Omega. I don't know if you're familiar with Alpha Omega, but
Mhm.
they did some trials with AromaLoc on a Cab Sav, and we did a blind tasting of that particular wine against control. So there were 3 samples. One was the control. One was using AromaLoc for X amount of time during fermentation. The other was using AromaLoc Y amount of time during fermentation. And in the blind tasting, I mean, first of all, the control wine was excellent. I mean, they make really, really nice Cab Savs at Alpha Omega, right?
Yep.
The second wine had more structure, more character. It was just more of a already good thing. And the third was almost unrecognizably bigger, because it had actually allowed the wine to capture more of the oak, and it had stuck with the wine. And I mean, the taster, who was a winemaker, head winemaker like you, was just like, oh my God, it's almost like another wine. It's almost like a different wine. It's that much bigger and bolder, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So Jason, in closing, what, if anything, would, if I was asking you to do a testimonial to your fellow winemakers, and say whatever you might say, good, bad, or indifferent, about AromaLoc, what would it be?
Well, first off, it works. I mean, just doing a pure organoleptic evaluation of the same wine fermented with the AromaLoc and without, there is a noticeable difference. You can tell it works. It's capturing that aroma. The second thing is that you can use it on multiple batches throughout one season. We have a long harvest period in Texas because we grow so many different types of grapes and different ripening time frames, is that you can use it on multiple tanks. So it's not like it's locked into one particular tank the entire time. So all of a sudden that price tag is just spread between up to 5 tanks, depending on the varieties that you harvest. So yeah, to be able to utilize a piece of equipment across a pretty broad spectrum of wine types, including reds, and it's not too difficult of a situation to do it in the reds. Just have to have a smaller tank size. Yeah, there's a potential impact across a lot of different wines, and I've been impressed, put it that way, especially with the simplicity and the design and the fact that it works.
That's a beautiful combination, right? In
Yeah.
wine, in aromatics, and in life itself.
Cheers to that.
Jason Centanni, winemaker at Llano Estacado winery in Texas. If folks would like to visit the winery virtually, Jason, what's your web address?
Yeah, the web address is www.llanowine.com, LLANO wine.com. And just so everybody knows what that means, the Llano Estacado means the staked plains. So we're a high elevation, about 1,000 meters, 3,300 feet or so. Just a flat, slight undulations here and there, kind of sandy plateau with some nice kind of limestone and calcareous type rocks kind of underlying. Very unique area in Texas. Totally different, than the rest of the state, but we're the Staked Plains Winery.
I love it.
And there's a whole history. You can just Google it, and it'll take you on a journey of conquistadors and Coronado, and have
That's
fun
fantastic.
reading that.
And you've managed to bottle all that history and all that wonderful geology, eh?
That's right, one vintage at a time.
I love it. Jason, thanks again for your time. Much, much appreciated.
You bet. Cheers.
Bye for now.